Okay, today is Friday. It is 3:24 a.m. It is March 13th. Um, see when uh, when caveman uh, when the caveman initially arrived in this world from heaven, okay, from heaven, lightning struck a bush, and inside this bush there was this wood, okay, and the wood, the dry part of it, caught fire, okay, because it created a linkage between, see, the lightning strikes, and it reaches a point where it is at the highest point that has a conductivity that's associated with it within that pocket of an area where the lightning or the electrons want to move towards. Okay, there is a crackle when the collection of electrons move from the sky towards the ground. And the point where that has the least amount of resistance will attract that localized pocket of electrons. And when it moves, it cracks as it forms. And the sound occurs because speed has gone past the sound barrier. Okay, so that is just like the end of a whip. There's a crack. And then what it does is, when a bush is above the ground and then it is extending itself towards the lightning strike, what it will do is it'll conduct. When it conducts, despite the fact that there is sufficient amount of conductivity in that resistance matter, it conducts, but it has a certain amount of resistance. And when it has that resistance, it'll crack. And that crack creates an instantaneous heat. And that instantaneous heat is created within that conduit. And that wood, the wet wood and the dry parts will start to combust, okay, because of the heat, sudden amount of heat surging, coursing through it, okay? So then fire is established. Now, what did the caveman do? The caveman didn't do anything, right? The caveman did not do anything, but the caveman found something that burns. And then somehow he whacked the mole and threw the mole into the fire and ate of it, and it tasted different, okay? Because it was cooked, okay? Then the advancements of humanity occurred now, today. And there are all sorts of ways to create fire, okay? I've seen this survival shows, and what they do is they take a gum which essentially has a aluminum foil lining around a wax paper, and the gum is inside it in order to keep it fresh. So they take this wrapper and take a 9-volt battery and connect it together, and it sparks and creates a fire. Okay, that's one way of starting a fire. Then man became a little bit more clever in advancing in the evolution of being a caveman, and started to rub two sticks together. And then when vigorously rubbed together, it creates heat. And when that heat is created, it creates a fire. Okay? That's another way of doing it, right? And then mankind became a little bit wiser and smarter and created something called a match. And so when this particular chemical compound, when dried, is scraped across a medium, the friction causes the disturbance and rearrangements of the chemicals, okay, and caused it to react, and it creates fire. That's called match. And then people who started to then there are people who now learned of something called cigarettes. And then because of cigarettes, what they do is they created a lighter, okay, and some liquid gas called like butane and some other forms of lighter fluids are used when in contact with a spark with a or sparking stone with a metallic rough surface. It scrubs across it, creates a spark, and ignites the ignites the mist of lighter fluid. Okay, so those are the advancements of being a caveman to now knowing how fire starts. Then man became even more advanced. Okay, and then the next advancement is something called, apparently what you do is when you spark a plutonium, okay, uranium, when you enrich uranium and then you combust it with TNT and compress it, neutron particles like scatter, and then that creates a chain reaction that causes an enormous amount of explosion within a bowling ball size to essentially envelop like 30 miles across of like explosive power, right? Then now mankind has embarked on something now even more advanced. So they looked up during the day and saw something was glowing, and they realized that it is based on description of physics, it is essentially what that thing is a fusion. Okay, that's how the sun works. So essentially, you essentially have two compounds that merge together to create another compound, right? So that's called fusion, right? Cold fusion, right? Instead of being fission, okay? So that's the advancements of mankind. Okay, look, I'm going to be 57 years old. In a few years, I'll be gone. I'll be gone, and it's only a matter of a few years, and now I'm trying to figure out how trading is done, right? So essentially, that's the advancements of what trading is. Then I realized, I've been doing this for 5 years. When I initially started, I was essentially a caveman, okay? Just looking at YouTube and YouTube and things like that, right? And then finally, I realized. Then I started doing like challenges, okay, platform challenges, and taking care of platform challenges. Taking care of platform challenges. Taking care of platform challenges. I was like going at it, just like a caveman, okay. So I was like approaching it like a caveman. Then I realized, okay, wait a minute now. So there's got to be some sort of smarts to this, right? When I'm doing it, then I realized, okay, so what I do is when I start trading, I would size really big, and then when I size really big, I would immediately, if I'm not successful at it, I would be in drawdown. Then psychologically speaking, when I'm in drawdown, I get like mentally depressed, and then I want to like end it. And so even if I tried it, there's like a psychological fog that causes me to essentially lose the challenge. Whether it's going to be on purpose to get rid of this pain that I'm in drawdown. Then I thought, that repeated for like 2.5 years. It is keep repeating. Okay, that's the caveman way of trading. Okay, not having any plans, thinking that, okay, I'm just going to make money and it's going to work out. Then I thought to myself, so if I were to initially, when I take the first few trades, if I go with small amounts, and then if I start accumulating, right? If I start accumulating and I have a bit of gain, if I have a gain, then I can start to risk more without being in a drawdown, right? So that's the whole point, right? So I thought, okay, so if I start taking on the challenge, because I was able to pass multiple times on demo, now what I can do now is to use some smarts, okay? Use figure out what I can do, okay? What resources do I have in order to make myself have that opportunity to increase the chance of me succeeding? So initially, when I'm succeeding, I don't want to be like risking it too much, where the risk, if I lose, could put me in a drawdown, and then it essentially would be causing a multiple kind of factors that allows me to lose. Okay, if I'm in a drawdown, psychology kicks in. Okay. So I've noticed that when I get to a certain point, I'm like, okay, so if I'm like 5% down, oh man, why am I bothering? It's going to take me all this time to get back anyway. So why am I bothering with it? I should just end it and then start a new challenge. That's the psychological thinking that I have. And so what I should have known is think a little bit more and say to myself, you know what? All I have to do, okay? All I have to do is initially, at the beginning, be on the positive side instead of being on the drawdown. So when I get on the positive side, then I'm able to risk more because I'm above. Okay, I'm above the starting amount. I'm above the starting amount. So when I'm above the starting amount, it gives me the psychological advantage so that I can properly apply my technique. So there's a couple of things that's happening. If I trade small initially, and then I start to accumulate, then it gives me that buffer. Okay, instead of just going full speed ahead. Okay, so I realized just like the caveman, all I have to do is use a little bit of smarts to help me strengthen my psychological presentation to the market, psychology to the market, and then when I have that, then I have a stronger mind that I can use to apply my techniques and the setups to make profit, right? That's like the evolution in thinking of from what I used to be. Now I can take that and then use it and make forward progress. It just makes sense. So if I go slow initially, right, incrementally making it. So even if I lose multiple times, okay, then the loss is small, so that eventually I will get back to it. But soon as I get to the point where I have a substantial amount of gains, then I can take some risk, having a little buffer, so that I can trade bigger. Okay, it allows me to trade bigger, so I can get to that point. It just makes sense to me right now. Hopefully, this is something. I believe this is what happened too in the past. What I do is I risk a lot, and when I make it, then I have a buffer, and then using that buffer, and if I make consistent gains, then it works out. Okay. So this 10K challenge is a significant amount. So it's going to be double what I used to make as a 5K, and then so that means that when I make that gain, and then when I get funded and I get payouts, it's going to be a substantial amount of money, right? Which is going to open up the door for all sorts, as long as I maintain this funded. When I get funded, that I can maintain it. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the added smarts. That's the evolution of thinking in and platform challenges. Hopefully, it works out. That's the plan.